Alright, so today I'm making an American Pale Ale. This is the Northern Brewer small batch kit of the Dead Ringer IPA. And I believe it's a clone of Bell's Two-Hearted Ale. So I have 1.25 gallons in the pot right now, heating up. It's about 1:30. I'm going to put my steeping grains in here. Swirl them around. Kind of make like a grain tea almost. So alright. Just gonna kind of loop that off to the side here. Let that heat up. Want to get it to about 150 degrees. Shouldn't take too long because I'm almost at 140 right now on the little thermometer. Once I get it up to 150, I'm gonna let it sit for about 10 minutes or so, really to get all that goodness out of the grains. So we'll see you then. Alright, so it was sitting at about 150 to 152 for about 10 minutes, steeping grains. So now we are going to rinse those, let them drain out here, get the heat turned back on. It went from about 154 down to about 150 with the heat off for those 10 minutes. So dropped a little bit, but that's all right. So that's that. We're gonna move these out of the way. All right, we're gonna bring this up to a boil now. Once it gets up to a boil, we are going to add the liquid malt extract. So we got 152 on the gauge right now. I don't know if you can see that. There you go. So yeah, see you back in just a few minutes. It smells amazing. This thing is so good. It's a nice dark orange in color. Yeah, I think it's gonna be really good. Alright, so I would call that a boil. So we're going to add the liquid malt extract. So we're going to take it off the burner. Because we don't want it to scorch the LME as it goes into the kettle, because it's heavy and it will sink straight to the bottom. So I'm going to be using the Mallard Malt's Gold Malt Extract. So take the lid off here. I've been soaking this thing in hot water so it will pour out real smooth. So pour it in slowly. Make sure we stir it real good. Using LME on an electric range, at least for me, has resulted in a darker beer than the normal than you would normally get for the style of whatever you're making. Did a Pilsner that was slightly darker than what a Pilsner would be, and some ales and IPAs that were a little bit darker. The LME sinks to the bottom and can stick a little bit to the bottom, and then the electric coils on the burner and scorch it a little bit. It's not ideal. I wish I had a gas range, but I don't. So take extra precaution to make sure it's fully stirred. That nothing's sticking to the bottom. What I'm going to do is put a little bit of hot water in there. Put the lid on it. Like that. Shake it up. I want to get all that extract syrup off the sides of the jar. I know this will add a little bit of volume, but not a whole lot, and I'll boil off a good amount. See, so much clearer. Add that. There we go. Toss that in the trash. Finish stirring here. And we'll add it back to the heat and bring it back to a boil. Add our first addition of hops. We're going to be doing a 45-minute boil. Sometimes I add about 5 or 10 minutes just for good measure. Make it sure it boils off all the bad stuff and keeps the good stuff in. So, alright, I'm going to stir this a little bit and then we'll put it back on the heat and we'll see you on the other side. Alright, so we are approaching the 20-minute mark. We're going to add our next addition of the Centennial hops. This is 3.5 grams. And we got to count down to the 20-minute mark. 4, 3, 2, 1, and they're in. So, there we go. Alright, 20 minutes left in the boil. In another 5 minutes we're going to add the Irish moss to help to clarify. I don't think I'm going to be doing a secondary on this beer. I didn't do it the last time. The instructions don't call for it, and I'm not going to be dry hopping, so I think I'll just won't do a secondary, maybe an extra week in the primary, just for good luck. So because of that, I'm going to add some Irish moss, so we'll kind of help clarify beer a little bit, help, you know, break down haze causing proteins and whatnot. That's what I'm told. It seems to work all right in the past, so I'll be doing that in just a few minutes. Alright, so we're coming up to 15 minutes. I'm going to be doing a 1/4 teaspoon of Irish moss right there. Will help clarify the beer. Alright, so we're at 15 minutes, 10 more minutes, then we'll add our next amount of hops. So while that's going, I am going to start cleaning the equipment for when I put it in the fermenter. So yeah, maybe I'll show a bit of that while that's going. Alright, so here is what I'm going to be using for my primary fermentation bucket. It's a 2-gallon bucket. No, it's not quite 2 gallons. I measured out what the increments are on the side there, so I'm shooting for a 1-gallon bucket. Probably with all the hops I get, I'll probably be just under, but that's alright. So I just cleaned that out with PBW, so it is nice and clean. Now I'm going to sanitize it. I'm using Star San, so measure out the adequate amount in the little cup there. Dump it in. Star San foams up like crazy. It gets in all the little nooks and crannies of everything, which is fantastic. So that's going to fill up. I'll move the camera over here and show you this. So I have this bucket and the strainer, and then my airlock and lid sitting in the PBW. I dumped it from the bucket into here, so that is getting clean. So once I get this sanitized, I will dump the cleaner solution out of there and then dump that into here. So there you go. So that is filling up, but in volume it's probably only about 1 gallon. That's quite a bit of foam. So what I'm going to do is put the lid on it here. Okay. So, and then put my thumb over the little hole, give it a little bit of a shake. Woo! Sprays out a little bit. So that way the foam is getting into every single corner. We'll let that sit for just a couple minutes, then we'll dump it out into the other one, start sanitizing the other stuff. So, sanitizing and cleaning is a 2-step process. I know a lot of places sell those 1-step cleaners, but I don't think they do a very good job. So I clean with PBW after I brew to get all my stuff clean, and then I usually do another cleaning of it right before I use my stuff, because sometimes they sit for several weeks. I haven't brewed anything since January, so it's been almost 2 months. So my stuff has been sitting for a while, so there's lots of dirt and things. So I want to make sure everything gets nice and clean. So here you can see that's some of my other stuff stacked up. You can take that out to the garage, but fermentation chamber, which is currently acting as a beer cellar because it's at about 50-55 degrees, bottle conditioning a lot of stuff. So it's not really at fermentation temp, but the ambient temp in the apartment is going to be all right for this IPA. So we'll just leave it in the apartment, it'll be okay. There we go. So it's still boiling away. Got a couple more minutes, then I'll add some more hops. Alright, here goes some more hops. You guys will probably notice that the level of wort in the kettle has dropped, which is alright, because that's some boil off. Started with a quarter of a gallon more than we needed. Okay, so this is more Centennial. This is a double compared to the last one. This is 7 grams instead of 3.5 grams. So this is a big aroma and flavor punch. Alright, make sure I got them all out. Alright. Yep, that's all of them. Alright. Alright, so while we're finishing up the last few minutes of the boil, I'm going to dump the sanitizer, that head, in the bucket. Into the other bucket that has the stuff I'm going to need. Get this all sanitized. There we go. Get some of that foam out if we can. My hand all sanitized. Lots of foam in the bucket. Don't fear the foam, but rather not have a ton of it in there if I don't have to. So there we go. There's that. So now that's ready. Set that back on the top so it stays nice and clean. There we go. You're probably thinking, what are you going to do the strainer for? Well, I'm going to show you here in just a second. Alright, there goes the beeper. Last bit of hops. Another 7 grams of Centennial. Kill the heat. Take it off. Now we're going to move the camera over and we're going to show you how I chill this baby down. Alright, so I'm filling up the sink with cold water. Grab the kettle that is really hot right off the burner, stick it in there, and fill this up with cold water, then I'm going to put some ice in it. I've heard good and bad things about having the lid on while you're cooling. Some people say it's good, so it keeps bad stuff out of your beer. Other people say it's bad because it doesn't let all the precursors for diacetyl to escape because it's still above 180 degrees. But I'm going to put the lid on for just a second so I don't drop an ice cube in there. Let's see, we can do this. This will probably melt all the ice really quick. I made up 2 trays of ice this morning, and I made 2 trays last night, so I have plenty of ice. There we go. Top it back off with some more cold water. Kind of vent that lid a little bit. Spread the ice around. The idea is to get it down to about 80 degrees, I guess. And then we'll transfer it into the fermenter, kind of aerate it, and then we'll pitch the yeast. So, usually on a 1 gallon batch of this size, takes about 10 minutes, maybe 15. So we'll see. The level of beer in the kettle is below the level of the water on the outside, so my kettle's actually floating a little bit. So I think what I'll do is just kind of leave the lid on just a little bit. I don't know. I've gone back and forth and I can't figure out the right way to do it, so it's kind of whatever works best for you. Alright, what I'm doing here is I am kind of moving the ice around. The kettle's so hot that it's warming up the water in the sink, which will melt the ice faster. So if I can keep it moving, then there's more moving cold water against the side of the kettle. You probably can't see it on the video, but just below the ice, or just below the level of the water here, you can actually see steamy bubbles coming up on the outside of the kettle. So, stir this a little bit. I stirred the beer, kind of give it a bit of like the whirlpool effect to kind of let my hops settle out on the bottom. So hopefully I won't get as much when I dump it into the fermenter. So we'll see how that works. Now we're just gonna let it cool. Alright, so our wort is cooled down to about 70 degrees, which is more like where we need it to be, because that's around pitching temp. We're gonna try to keep our yeast at about 60 to 75. My apartment right now is about 68 degrees. So here we go. Cool down. We have the fermenting bucket and the double mesh strainer sanitized and cleaned. I have my yeast packet out. We are going to be doing US-05 yeast. So, the bottom of my brew kettle still has water on it, so I hope I don't drip everywhere and slip. So here we go. We're going to just dump it right in and use the strainer to strain out the yeast, all the hops. It'll also help to aerate. See, got quite a bit of hops in there. And we'll just dump the whole thing in. There we go. All the good stuff out. Get all the drippings. So we're not doing a dry hopping on this, if you'll remember. Sanitized spoon here. Gonna stir it up. Aerated real nice and neat. So, quick and simple. Alright, I took a gravity reading and it was about 15.8 bricks, which is 1064, which is exactly spot on, which is fantastic. Done a couple as of lately where I had overshot my gravity. So we're using US-05 yeast. I sanitized the top of the yeast and the scissors. So we're going to cut the top off here. Since this is a small batch, we're not going to use a whole pack of yeast. It'll probably be a little overkill. So we're going to use about a half pack of yeast. We're going to just kind of sprinkle it right on top there. On top of the foam, it will all fall in. There we go, that's our half packet. I made a black IPA couple months ago where I did a whole packet in a 1 gallon batch, and it needed it because it was like 1089 starting gravity. So there we go. We will put the lid on. That's been in sanitizer also. And get our airlock. It's filled with sanitizer. There we go. So do an air test here. There we go. So it's a good seal. Clean up some of this here on the outside, just so I don't have a wet fermenter. There we go. Now we are going to go stick this in a place where it's going to ferment. Alright, so it is in the bucket, and it is down to 74 is what it says. When I measured, I came up with 3/4 of a gallon, lost some due to evaporation and hops, but it is sitting in a nice cool place. It will cool off in a little bit. This is the one room of the house that has the most consistent temperature, and the one spot where it will stay the closest to where I need it to be. So there you go, and that is how you make an American IPA. This will sit here for about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, and then we'll bottle. All right, thanks guys, bye.